Leviticus 14. The Lord said to Moses, "These are the regulations for any deceased person at the time of the ceremonial cleansing when they are brought to the priest. The priest is to go outside the camp and examine them. If they have been healed of a defiling skin disease, the priest shall order the 2 live clean birds and some cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop be brought for the person to be cleansed. Then the priest shall order that one of the birds be killed over fresh water in a clay pot. He is then to take the live bird and dip it together with the cedar wood, the scarlet yarn, and hyssop into the blood of the bird that was killed over the fresh water. 7 times he shall sprinkle the one to be cleansed of the defiling disease, and then pronounce them clean. After that, he is to release the live bird in open fields. The person to be cleansed must wash their clothes, shave off all their hair, and bathe with water. Then they will be ceremonially clean. After this, they may come into the camp, but they must stay outside the tent for 7 days. On the 7th day, they must shave off their hair. They must shave their head, their beard, the eyebrow, and the rest of their hair. They must wash their clothes and bathe themselves with water, and they will be clean. On the 8th day, they must bring 2 male lambs and 1 ewe lamb a year old without a defect, along with the 3 tenths of an ephah of the finest flour mixed with olive oil for a grain offering and 1 log of oil. The priest who pronounces them clean shall present both the one to be cleansed and their offering before the Lord at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The priest is to take one of the male lambs and offer it as guilt offering along with a log of oil. He shall wave them before the Lord as a wave offering. He is to slaughter the lamb in a sanctuary area where the sin offering and the burnt offering are slaughtered. Like the sin offering, the guilt offering belongs to the priest. It is the most holy. The priest is to take some of the blood of the guilt offering and put it on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, on the thumb of the right hand, and one of the big toe of the right foot. The priest shall then take some of the log of oil, pour it into the palm of his own left hand, dip his right forefinger into the oil in his palm, and with his finger sprinkle some of it before the Lord 7 times. The priest is to put some of the oil remaining in his palm on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, on the thumb of the right hand, and one of the big toe of the right foot, on top of the blood of the guilt offering, the rest of the oil in his palm, and the priest shall put off the head of the one to be cleansed, and make atonement for them before the Lord. Then the priest is to sacrifice a sin offering and make atonement for the one to be cleansed from the uncleanness. After that, the priest shall slaughter the burnt offering and offer it on the altar together with the grain offering and make atonement for them, and they will be clean. If, however, they are poor and cannot afford these, they must take 1 male lamb as a guilt offering to be weighed to the atonement for them, together with the tenth of an ephah of the finest flour mixed with olive oil for a grain offering, and log of oil, and 2 does of two young pigeons, such as they can afford, one of a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. On the 8th day, they must bring them for the cleansing to the priest at the entrance to the tent of meeting. Before the Lord, the priest is to take the lamb for the guilt offering, together with the log of oil, and wave them before the Lord as well as a wave offering. He shall slaughter the lamb for a guilt offering and take some of its blood and put it on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, on the thumb of the right hand, and one of the big toe of the right foot. The priest is to pour some of the oil in his palm of his own left hand, and with his right forefinger sprinkle some of the oil from his palm 7 times before the Lord. Some of the oil in his palm he is to put on the same places he put the blood of the guilt offering, on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, on the thumb of the right hand, and one of the big toe of the right foot. The rest of the oil in his palm the priest shall put on the head of the one to be cleansed, to make an atonement for them before the Lord. Then he shall sacrifice the does of the young pigeons, such as the person can afford, one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering, together with the grain offering in this way. The priest will make atonement before the Lord on behalf of the one to be cleansed. These are regulations for any who has defiling skin disease, who cannot the regular offering for the cleansing. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "When you enter the land of Canaan, which I am giving you as your possessions, and I put a spreading mold in a house in that land, the owner of the house must go and tell the priest, 'I have seen something that looks like the defiling mold in my house.' The priest is to take the order house to be emptied before the house to examine the mold, so that nothing in the house will be pronounced unclean. After this, the priest is to go in and inspect the house. He is to examine the mold on the walls, and if it is greenish or reddish depressions that appear to be deeper than the surface of the wall, the priest shall go out the doorway of the house and close it up for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest shall return to inspect the house. In the mold of the spread on the walls, he is to order the contaminated stones be torn out and thrown into an unclean place outside the town. He must have all the inside walls of the house scarped, and at the material that is scarped off dumped into an unclean place outside the town. Then they are to take other stones to replace these, and take new clay and plaster the house. If the defiling mold reappears in the house after the stones have been torn out of the house, scarped and plastered, the priest is to go and examine it, and if the mold has spread in the house, it is a prescient defiling mold. The house is unclean. It must be torn down in stones, timbers, and all the plaster, and taken out of the town to an unclean place. Anyone who goes into the house while it is closed up will be unclean till evening. Anyone who sleeps or eats in the house must wash their clothes. But if the priest comes in to examine it, and the mold has not spread after the house has been plastered, he shall pronounce the house clean before the defiling mold is gone. To purify the house, he is to take 2 birds, some cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop. He shall kill one of the birds over the fresh water in a clay pot. Then he is to take the cedar wood, the hyssop, the scarlet yarn, and the live bird, dip them into the blood of the dead bird and the fresh water, and sprinkle the house 7 times. He shall purify the house with the bird's blood, the fresh water, the live bird, the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the scarlet yarn. Then he is to release the live bird into the open fields outside the town. In this way, he will make atonement for the house, and it will be clean. These are the regulations for any defiling skin disease, for a sore, for defiling molds in fabric in a house, and for swelling, a rash, or a shiny spot, to determine when something is clean or unclean. These are the regulations for defiling skin disease and defiling molds. Leviticus 15. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when any man has an unusual bodily disgrace, such as disgrace is unclean, whether it continues flowing from his body or it blocked, it will make him unclean. This is how his disgrace will bring out uncleanness. Any bed the man with a disgrace lies on will be unclean, and anything he sits on will be unclean. Anyone who touches his bed must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. Whoever sits on anything that the man with a disgrace sat on must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. Whoever touches the man who has disgrace must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. If the man with the disgrace spits on anyone who is clean, they must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. Every the man sits on when riding will be unclean, and whoever touches any of the things that were under him will be unclean till evening. Whoever picks up those things must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. Anyone the man with a disgrace touches without rinsing his hands with water must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. A clay pot that the man touches must be broken, and any wooden article is to be rinsed with water. When a man is cleansed from his disgrace, he is to count off 7 days for his ceremonially cleansing. He must wash his clothes and bathe himself with fresh water, and he will be clean. On the 8th day, he must take 2 doves or 2 pigeons and come before the Lord to the entrance to the tent of meeting and give them to the priest. The priest is to sacrifice them, the one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. In this way, he will make atonement before the Lord for the man because of his disgrace. When a man has emissions of semen, he must bathe his whole body with water, and he will be unclean till evening. Any clothing or leather that has semen on it must be washed with water, and it will be unclean till evening. When a man has a sexual relation with a woman and there is an emission of semen, both of them must bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. When a woman has a regular flow of blood, the impurity of her monthly period will last 7 days, and anyone who touches her will be unclean till evening. Anything she lies on during her period will be unclean, and anything she sits on will be unclean. Anyone who touches her bed will be unclean. They must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. Anyone who touches anything she sits on will be unclean. They must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. Whether it is the bed or anything she was sitting on, when anyone touches it, they will be unclean till evening. If a man has a sexual relation with her and her monthly flow touches him, he will be unclean for 7 days. Any bed he lies on will be unclean. When a woman has a disgrace of blood for many days at a time other than her monthly period, or has a disgrace continuous beyond her period, she will be unclean as long as she has the disgrace, just as in days of her period. Any bed she lies on while her disgrace continues will be unclean, as is her bed during her monthly period, and anything she sits on will be unclean, as during her period. Anyone who touches them will be unclean. They must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. When she is cleansed from her disgrace, she must count off 7 days, and after that she will be ceremonially clean. On the 8th day, she must take 2 doves and two young pigeons and bring them to the priest at the entrance to the tent of meeting. The priest is to sacrifice one of a sin offering and the other one for a burnt offering. In this way, he will be make atonement for her before the Lord for the uncleanness of her disgrace. You must keep the Israelites separate from things that make them unclean, so they will not die in their uncleanness for defiling my dwelling place which is among them. These are the regulations for a man with a disgrace, for anyone made unclean for an emission of semen, for a woman in her monthly period, for a man or a woman with a disgrace, and for a man who has a sexual relation with a woman who is ceremonially unclean. Leviticus 16. The Lord spoke to Moses after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron who died when they approached the Lord. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell your brother Aaron that he is not to come whenever he chooses into the most holy place behind the curtain into the front of the atonement cover on the ark, or else he will die. For I will appear in the cloud over the atonement cover. This is how Aaron is to enter the most holy place. He must first bring a young bull for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. He is to put on the sacred linen tunic with linen undergarment next to his body. He is to tie the linen sash around him and put on the linen turban. These are sacred garments, so he must bathe himself with water before he puts them on. From the Israel community, he is to take 2 male goats for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. Aaron is to offer the bull for his own sin offering to make atonement for himself and his household. Then he is to take the 2 goats and present them before the Lord at the entrance to the tent of meeting. He is to cast lots for the 2 goats, one lot of the Lord and the other for the scapegoat. Aaron shall bring the goat whose lot falls to the Lord and sacrifice it for sin offering. But the goat chosen by lot as a scapegoat shall be presented alive before the Lord to be used for making atonement by sending it into the wilderness as a scapegoat. Aaron shall bring the bull for his sin offering to make atonement for himself and his household, and he is to slaughter the bull for his own sin offering. He is to take a censer full of burning coals from the altar before the Lord and 2 handfuls of finely ground fragrant incense and take them behind the curtain. He is to put the incense on the fire before the Lord, and the smoke of the incense will conceal the atonement cover above the tablets of the covenant law, so that he will not die. He is to take some of the bull's blood and with his fingers sprinkle it on the front of the atonement cover. Then he shall sprinkle some of it with his finger 7 times before the atonement cover. He shall then slaughter the goat for the sin offering for the people and take its blood behind the curtain and do with it as he did with the bull's blood. He shall sprinkle it on the atonement cover and in front of it. In this way he will make atonement for the most holy meeting, which is among them in the midst of their uncleanness. No one is to be in the tent of meeting from the time Aaron goes in to make atonement in the most holy place until he comes out, having made atonement for himself, his household, and the whole community of Israel. Then he shall come out to the altar that is before the Lord and make atonement for it. He shall take some of the bull's blood and some of the goat's blood and put it on all the horns of the altar. He shall sprinkle some of the blood on in it was with his finger 7 times to cleanse it and to consect it from the uncleanness of the Israelites. When Aaron has finished making atonement for the most holy place, the tent of meeting at the altar, he shall bring forward the live goat, and he is to lay both lance on the head of the live goat and confess over it all the wickedness and rebellion of the Israelites, all their sin, and put them on the goat's head. He shall send the goat away into the wilderness in the care of someone appointed for the task. The goat will carry on itself all their sin to a remote place, and the man shall release it into the wilderness. Then Aaron is to go into the tent of meeting and make off the linen garments he put on before he entered the most holy place, and he is to leave them there. He shall bathe himself with water in the sanctuary area and put on his regular garments. Then he shall come out and sacrifice the burnt offering for himself and the burnt offering for the people to make atonement for himself and for the people. He also burned the fat of the sin offering on the altar. Then The man who releases the goat as a scapegoat must wash his clothes and bathe himself with water. Afterward, he may come into the camp. The bull and the goat for the sin offering, whose blood was brought into the most holy place to make atonement, must be taken outside the camp. Their heads, flesh, and intestines are to be burned up. The man who burns them must wash his clothes and bathe himself with water. Afterwards, he may come into the camp. This is to be lasting ordinance for you. On the 10th day of the 7th month, you must deny yourself and do any work, whether native born or a foreigner residing among you. Because on this day atonement will be made for you to be cleanse you. Then before the Lord you will be cleansed for all your sins. It is a day of the Sabbath rest, and you must deny yourself. It is a lasting ordinance. The priest who anointed and ordained to succeed his father as his high priest is to make atonement. He is to put on the sacred linen garment and make atonement for the most holy place, for the tent of meeting and the altar and the priest of all the members of the community. This is to be a lasting ordinance for you. Atonement is to be made once a year for all the sins of the Israelites, and it was done as the Lord commanded Moses.